I hope everyone had a nice bank holiday weekend. It's Tuesday lunchtime today. Um, and yes, how are we all? It's a bit grey where I am. How is it where you are, Ruth?
Yeah, grey, windy,
Yeah.
not very sunny, not very
Well, I,
inspiring.
c- I can, yes, after last week's glorious sunshine, I
Oh,
can't really complain. But
true.
yes, yes. But welcome everybody. Do say hello in the chat. We love hearing from you and welcome you all to this week's webinar. Sorry, I've got a little beeping going on my computer. Let's try and stop that. Okay. Great. So today we're talking all about habits and we'll get cracking right away. We're recording, so we'll get cracking now. Um, my name is Dr. Samantha Wellapilly. I'm a GP. I'm also a nutritionist and a yoga therapist and a meditation teacher and author. I also coach people through big changes in life, and we all know that wanting to lose weight for the long term is a big change. And Ruth and I are passionate about approaching this in a holistic sense, and that's what these webinars are all about. And Ruth is also going to say hello this morning or this afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all going well. Hi everyone. I'm Ruth Taylor. I'm a nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor and also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. And like Sam, we absolutely love coming along to these webinars and really just sharing the latest evidence around how to lose weight in the for the long term. We're really here to support this to be your best weight loss journey ever, the one that it happens and it stays. We really want to prevent that yo-yo as much as possible. And today is a really important subject all around changing habits because what we know from studying all of the research is actually one of the things we have to really engage with is what trips us up, what has got us where we don't want to be in the first place. Because unless we unpick all of those behaviors and really make a concerted effort to change, then things don't change. And we can just find ourselves back at square one again, which I'm sure many people have done. I know I've done. I know, Sam, this is a subject that's really close to our hearts, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
just to let you know, for the purposes of the webinars, do pop any questions you've brought along with you straight into the Q&A box. If you have any very complex medical questions that are related to your own personal health, we will probably direct you straight back to your medical provider, just because for the purposes of a webinar, they're not really safe questions for us to be answering. But feel free to ask. And if for any reason it's not safe for us to answer, we'll just redirect you. And I can see that there are lots of sunny places around the country. So I'm really pleased to hear that there is lots of sunshine, just not
Look at
here.
you. Good. Well, nice to see you, Gloria, Zara, Cheryl, Shirley, Caroline, uh, everybody. We're really glad that you've been able to join us today.
And thanks to Raman. And we also have Anna who's joining as the crew behind the scenes. So thank you to both of you for being here today. And they will help by sharing any of the resources or just making sure everything runs smoothly from an IT point of view, all being well. So, why habits? This is, as I was saying, something really, really important for us to be thinking about and focusing on. We're going to have a deeper dive into the habits and what is happening for all of us around this whole story of habits. But what we know is that a lot of what we do every day is based on what we always do. I think the sort of research suggests it's somewhere in the region of between 40 and 70% of everything we do every day is just habitual. But interestingly enough, our brain has got an amazing capacity to change, to learn, to swap, to unlearn patterns of behavior, but we have to recognize them in the first place. And a good way of thinking about the decisions we make is imagine having a little angel sitting on one shoulder and a little devil sitting on the other. The angel represents the two parts of the brain that is our healthy person, our healthy self, that prefrontal cortex and limbic brain. This is the one telling us that we're doing well and want to be healthy. We want to go to the gym. We want to eat that healthy, lovely vegetable salad that we've made. We don't really need to be doing anything apart from all of the things that make us feel really positive and good. The other side, we have a little devil sitting on our shoulder, which perhaps could be a little bit of nervousness, a bit of anxiety, the one that tells you that you really do want to eat that extra chocolate bar or that second helping of pudding. Whatever it is, your little foibles in life, we all have them. And we can become stronger, either in that angel head or in that devil head. We can train ourselves to really tune in to which side of the brain that we want to be most predominantly. So we have to learn to challenge ourselves when we hear that little devil voice. We need to sort of really recognize that that's happening. I don't know if anybody recognizes this in themselves. I certainly do. It's amazing when we have chocolate in the house, it will just literally talk to me and convince me that it's a good thing to be engaging with, even though I could be absolutely certain on the other side of my brain that that's not for me. So we really need to start relating this to our weight loss journeys and really understanding what habits it is that we've got that trip us up. Does that make sense, Sam? What about you?
Oh, absolutely. I think we kind of I think a lot of our behaviors are completely unconscious, aren't they? We don't really think about things, and those are our habits, those unconscious patterns that we're in and we just repeat. And unfortunately, some of them are really not very helpful and can get us to a place where we want to make big change. And I think habits are a bit of an unsung hero because if we look at our habits, are so much of our automated behaviors are habitual. And if we address those, then actually, we will talk about this later. We need less willpower, which is, I think, can be really helpful. We will go into this in a bit more depth. So if we move on to the next slide, let's have a look at. So this is all about identifying the habits. Um, so most of our behaviors are habits that we've practiced many times. So that would be like riding a bike, driving a car, these automatic behaviors that we think of. We don't even stop and think to do them. We just do it. And this can be a problem, obviously, when it comes to our food choices and snacking. So there's a term that we know as neuroplasticity, and that's the ability for our brain's pathways that are set in, have well-trodden paths, these neural pathways of behavior, well-trodden, those are our habits basically, and kind of a you know, that's the way we have laid them down, let's say, over many years. The neuroplasticity factor is that we can change those things, that our pathways are malleable. We can develop new habits and replace old habits. Okay. So we what this slide is talking about is really identifying the habits that we want to augment, that we want to change, that we want to adapt in a way that is better for our long-term health. And if we are on a weight loss journey, to lose weight in this as we put one foot in front of the other. Okay, so we want to identify perhaps there are triggers, perhaps there are patterns that we know we do. For example, um, at 11 o'clock, I always have a coffee break and I always have a couple of chocolate biscuits alongside my coffee. Perhaps that is a pattern that you've been doing for years or something similar. Right. The key is to identify it, not to judge ourselves, berate ourselves, be unkind to ourselves, because that does not help, right? We're just identifying things. And what can really help here is the food and mood journal. So, um, uh, Raman, if you can please share the food and mood journal there. What it's really helpful for is to just notice. Sometimes we don't even realize we're doing stuff like those two biscuits at break time. We just always have them and we never really think of it as a problem. But obviously, if we're doing that day upon day upon day and they're not really required, and perhaps what we could do is add a bit of protein to our breakfast so we're not physically feeling that hunger and retrain ourselves to not have those cookies at break time. Over time, it doesn't have to be overnight, and it could be swapping those out to start with to something a bit more like a more protein, a healthier snack, or something with some protein in it, something that's not going to spike our sugars, make us hungry 2 hours later, something like that. Um, Also recognizing how we reward ourselves or how we console ourselves when we're really stressed. We might be like, okay, I'm having a piece of cake because I'm really blooming stressed. Or, this thing's happened and it's made me feel really rubbish. And I'm going to console myself with whatever it is, um, whatever sweet treat or savory treat it is that we like. So recognizing it is the first step. And then we want to look at ways and not choosing everything all at once because it's hard to choose to change everything at once. We want to do this step by step. Um, we want to look at our look at our habits and look where they fall in our day. Look at where our meal times fall. Just look at the patterns basically over the day and where the habits might be that are tripping us up. And then we start thinking about picking a couple of those things that we wish to change, rerouting our behavior, maybe swapping out for an alternative snack if it's a snack that's tripping us up. Maybe we take the stairs instead of the lift. So we swap an old habit for a new one. That's really what we're looking at. Some research looking at habits and weight gain has found that weight gain is associated with the following habits: regularly eating sweets, drinking sugar sweetened drinks, eating very quickly, and eating very often over the day. Okay. So one of so the author of the book, The Power of Habit, found that we often eat quite mindlessly. Um, and we need for example, a cue to tell us that we have eaten a portion size. So, for example, if you're eating crisps from a large bag, there's no cue to trigger that you've had the portion, because there's still some left in the bag. So, for example, something like that, if you had a big bag of crisps, it would be easier for you to understand the portion size if you poured out a portion size into another container and ate from that instead of eating from the big bag, if that makes sense. Just to give your mind, give your brain that trigger to know that it's time to swap. That's rerouting behavior, giving yourself a chance, giving yourself a cue to to stop once you've had a portion. Um, and I can see that there's a poll that's launched here. Have a look at the poll here. If there's all your answers are anonymous, it's just to have an idea um, of having a look at what habits might be affecting you, and might be stopping you getting to the goal that you've set for yourself in your weight loss journey.
Yeah, very much so. And I can see that Lucy has put in the chat box that she thinks one of her habits is pairing food with her favorite TV show or film. Isn't that interesting? I think a lot of people do that, Lucy. You are absolutely not alone. I always feel like in order to really enjoy watching it, I need to have some indulgent food to go with it. So one of the things you could do is you could change what that indulgent food looks like, maybe create a healthy snack instead, which would be a great step in the right direction. But you are absolutely not alone. And I can see from the poll that the top answer today is cravings are the thing that are getting in the way of most people getting the results that they want, or maybe eating the wrong things. So cravings and giving into them. Really interesting. A few people have answered other people, so I wonder if we're allowing other people to sabotage our success or to get in the way of what we really want. Is it that we go out with friends and we don't know how to say to them, no, I really don't want cake today. Thank you very much. I've had a really lovely breakfast and I'm full up. It's really interesting. Maybe we need to practice what we say to those other people so that we're a little bit more prepared for those moments. I find it fascinating. We're funny humans, aren't we? We find it difficult to just stand up for ourselves, maybe
Well, I think
sometimes.
we have this issue of being polite, don't we? Of it's rude to say no or to decline, but you know, I think also we have to be really clear with ourselves as well on what our goals are. And of course we talk about the 80/20 rule that it doesn't have to be, you never have a treat with a friend ever again in your life. That we're really not about this very rigid, very harsh structure. We realize that life, you know, food can be a real pleasure, a real joy shared with friends, but we want you to really enjoy it. Um, in moderation and really focus on your goals 80% of the time, and 20% of the time just think about, okay, this is a 20% time I'm going to have this whatever ice cream with my friend, and that's lovely, and enjoy it. And as you have it, enjoy it. That's really important to not I think we spend a lot of our times when we've been on a weight loss journey or we've been on multiple over our lifetimes, we can be really hard on ourselves as well. And it's not really about that. We really have to, we're looking at the science and we're looking at the ways that you can kind of, I think if we really look at habits, it's a real game changer for a lot of people. If you look at the way habits are made and the way you can um, replace habits with new ones and that you can augment the outcome.
Very much so. And don't forget our brain, we do go into this in other webinars, but our brain is hardwired to want reward. So actually, instead of having no reward, we need to find other rewards that perhaps are less food-based. And that can really help us be successful as well. So yes, we're going to just talk a little bit about this really interesting term called decision fatigue. And it's a little bit like what you were saying earlier, Sam, about the importance of habits, because what we know is that if we rely on willpower, it can really run out. And actually, we don't need to rely on willpower. So the more decisions you have to make in a day or in a week or in a month, the harder it can be to actually come to a decision that you actually is consistent with what you want to. You can sort of become like a little bit fatigued with having to make all of those decisions. So this is this term, decision fatigue. Really interesting. I've just moved everything around on my screen. I can't see anything, but there you go. So just think about it. You have a pot of decisions to make in a day, and once that pot is empty, you've really got no decisions left for yourself. So that's when habits kick in. And that's when our behavior just goes back to normal or what we've always done. So it could be that you're absolutely exhausted by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's the time of day when, unless you're on your A game, you really need, or you'll find that you reach for a snack. It could be a chocolate bar, or it could be a piece of cake, or it could be something healthy. It doesn't have to be any of those things, but it could be that you've decided that you're just going to go from one meal to the next without having a snack. But by that time, you're beginning to slump a little bit. Your energy's low. Your habit has always been to have a treat at that time of day. And guess what? You've got no decisions left in your pot. You're just fatigued. So, therefore, the likely thing that's going to happen is you'll just go back into your habitual behavior and you will have that snack. So, what you need to do is you need to be creating healthy habits so that when you hit those moments when you've got no ability to make decisions, that actually it becomes really easy to follow through with your goal and to do the thing that's easy for you. So, if it is that having that snack is going to be something that you want to do healthily, you need to be prepared. You need to be really ready. You need to sort of nail it as many times as you possibly can so that it becomes a habit that just happens automatically, but we have to relearn. We have to practice. Everything that we want to change involves practice. For many of us, we've got habits that we want to get rid of. But if you think about it across the course of the last 5 years or 10 years, even, how often have you done that thing and practiced it and sort of established that as your normal behavior in your everyday pattern of life? So you think about that and you think about the unlearning. You might need to practice for a year every day to actually nail that new habit. There is no absolute definite answer to how long it takes to make that new habit. It can take from 21 days of practicing every day to a year. And actually, the more often we practice the new habit, the easier it will become. So that makes sense to me. I think, not relying on willpower is really important. Really stepping in and making new habits is absolutely essential. Don't you agree with that, Sam? I think we both think this is totally vital, don't we?
Absolutely. And it can be something simple like, whether you put sugar in your tea or your coffee, like that's sort of untraining yourself to do that. It's also about augmenting our taste buds as well, which we've talked about in other webinars, that we sort of train ourselves out of having such a sweet tooth. I think these are all keys and they kind of all go hand in hand. When you sort of step into sort of approaching something in a holistic way, you often find that things kind of overlap, that there is a lot of overlap in what we're talking about in each of these webinars. So let's move on to this behavior change cycle, which is quite a useful way to think about changing our behaviors and setting up new habits and really succeeding. Um, because there's an interesting process that we go through when we're making change. Because for any one thing that we want to change, we will go through a cycle like this one, okay? And it's possible at any one time you might be in an action stage with one change, maintaining another one, and not even really thinking about, or your pre-contemplation, in the pre-contemplation phase of a different thing, okay? Um, but it's what it what it also is important to understand is that um, we need to really address those fundamental pillars for weight loss that need our attention. So that's our sleep, our stress management, what we're eating, our activity, and our fluids over the day. And we can look at those things and we can think about them in terms of this behavior change cycle. So we start with that pre-contemplation. So it's not even on our mind, but it's sort of floating in the ether that, change needs to be made. And then we sort of decide, okay, I always have two sugars in my tea, and I have 6 cups of tea a day. So that's 12 teaspoons of sugar over the day. That's a fair whack of energy or calories that I probably don't need necessarily. Right. So let me think about what could I do about that. And then you might prepare yourself for, okay, maybe I could just think about, you know, what would I need to do to have less of that in my tea, take action. Maybe you would drop down to 1 teaspoon um, to start with, and maybe you could maintain that. Maybe then something happened, or you had a bad day and you really needed to. And then you could think of, then you might go into that phase again. And what this cycle is, it does show that there can be ups and downs, and it's not necessarily a straight line from A to B. And I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind, that we're not robots and things aren't a straight line. We know the journey of weight loss is not a straight line. We can really, have plateau phases. It can be stepwise. We can go up and down. Different things happen, and our lives happen, and we're not always as focused as we would like to be. But I think it's important to know that this cycle is there and that you can come back to it and you can rejoin this cycle at any point where you want to make the change and take action, because the maintenance phase could last for years, of where you are. And it might never go back to where the level was before. You might never go back to 2 cups, 2 teaspoons of sugar in your tea, you know, but you might every now and again just, you know, need that sugar boost for something else. And it doesn't mean that that's the end, that you've failed, that, you know, just think of it more as a cycle, and that, then we just need to think about it again and it's fine. And then we go into that, we prepare, and then we take action again. And we remember why we're doing this in the first place. I think that's really key when we're thinking about these sort of concepts and how our brain works and our habits and our um, neural pathways that we set through years of practice, basically. We can make change, and empowering ourselves to make those changes is key. And knowing that there's a cycle, and that to to make change that stays, we have to really be kind to ourselves along the way, because it's not always easy. Some things will definitely be easier than others. Um, but sometimes those bigger changes can take a while, and they can take a bit of toing and froing before we really nail it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole sense of going backwards and relapse, it's not a fail, it's just an opportunity to learn what are the things that get in your way, who are the people that you find it more difficult to resist or to say no to, what are the situations that you find really difficult to navigate. I think it's just about being human and accepting that we will all have those moments, and not to overthink it, actually just put it down to experience, learn from it, move on, rather than, oh my goodness, I've eaten all this food today, I feel terrible, I'm off my diet. That sort of diet culture, the diet mindset, you feel so bad that tomorrow you have a really bad day too. Hey presto, before you know it, you've had a really bad week. Then you just feel like you're a failure and you might as well give up. So we want you to move away from that. We want you to just acknowledge and accept that This cycle happens all of the time in life, and we really need to stop beating ourselves up and just learn from the things that go well, learn from the things that go less well. I think it's really important. We're all works in progress, aren't we, as well? So I don't know anyone who's utterly perfect. Um, and I know lots of people who are very, very good, but they're still not perfect. So that's good to know. So we thought it'd be really helpful to talk a little bit about how to make a new habit, because obviously this may be something you haven't put a lot of thought into. So we just thought we'd share what the research tells us. So what we know is that making a new habit can be pretty easy to achieve, and it can be really complicated. And depending on the complexity of the habit or how ingrained your old behaviors are, is going to be more easy or more difficult, depending on all of those things. So don't feel overwhelmed by this. Motivation and willpower are often really high at the start of a weight loss journey, but that can become increasingly difficult to keep up. We often ask people, what are your whys? What are your reasons? What's your deep-seated reason for being here? That's a really good anchor to really understand your why, because it can sort of get you past those moments of low motivation. But, actually just try and make life easier for yourself. So if it is that, having things in the house means you can't resist them, initially you might need to just make a decision not to have certain foods around and about you. You could maybe think about, if you're not particularly active or you find it difficult to be active, or your job means that you're sitting a lot like ours can do. We've both invested in standing desks. That can be one thing that you can do. You can buy those really inexpensively now, fortunately. Or every time you get up to get a drink, maybe just do an extra couple of little squats, or do a little bit of wall press ups, or just some activity to just get your body moving healthily for you. If your habit is that you want to eat a healthy food, make a list of your eating habits. This is really a time for you to be really honest with yourself. Are you grazing? Are you a snacker? Are you somebody who spends the evening grazing? Are you a fridge raider? What's going on for you? Do you wake up in the night? Some people will even wake up in the night. We know this, and perhaps raid the fridge at that point because they're having problems sleeping. So is it sleep that you need to put your attention into? Really check in with yourself, and we'll check in with you. Have a look at that food tracker. The food and mood tracker is really helpful at really beginning to pinpoint where you're going wrong and what you can do to help yourself. So here you go. Over to you, Sam. Lots of comments.
Um, Thanks everyone for your comments in the chat box.
Lots
So,
of sound comments. So sounds like everybody's okay.
oh, can you hear? The
Yeah,
sound has gone very
sounds
low.
like it's okay.
Okay,
That might have been one person. Cool.
okay. Um, okay. So we're creating if we want to look at this cycle of creating new habits. So we talked about having cues to really help us. So, for example, decanting, a portion size into a smaller container if we're having if we have a large bag of crisps. But let's think about other things that could be a cue. Um, so this work, this cyclist comes from the work of a writer called James Clear. He wrote the book Atomic Habits, which was very popular, so some of you may well know it. Um, and it's this way is thought to help each of us in creating those new habits. So first of all, whatever it is that you want to change, you make it really obvious. So, for example, if you want to, say, get off the bus 2 stops earlier so that you have a bit of a walk on your way to work, leave out your trainers by the front door so that you know the night before, you know that you have got your stuff in a backpack so you're nice and even when you're walking, when you're doing that longer walk in the morning. So these different cues in your environment can be lots of different things. So you might want to set a reminder, set an alarm on your phone that pops up saying, I don't know, take the stairs, not the lift today, or park your car sort of further away from the Tesco's entrance, or remember, park at the back, park at the back of the car park so you have a longer walk to the supermarket and back. So so that you're just introducing more movement into your day. It doesn't have, these don't have to be major things. But if we create a habit, then that is amplified because that means you do that every time. If you start to remember to park at the back of the car park every time, if you always get off the bus 2 stops earlier than your usual stop, you have that longer walk. And these things, the steps will accumulate over a week, over a month, over a year. This is really much. You can see how as we repeat the behaviors, we are laying down those new neural pathways that will support us, and also the effects will be felt in our bodies as well. Um, you might want to, for example, we talk a lot about drinking enough clear fluids over the day. So um, I know we will all have seen the enormous bottles that you can get these days, which have got sort of the markings along the side of to mark off how much exactly you're drinking, and you could have that next to your desk at work so that you have an idea of how much you're drinking over the day, and that you are drinking enough to keep you nice and hydrated. Um, Even something that's a bit more sort of what would you say, kind of, I like this example of painting your nails a bright color so that that could be a cue to remind you to make healthier food choices. It's just a visual reminder. Some of us work that way. We're very visual people. So that's all about the cue. You want to make it attractive, whatever the change is. So create a positive image around it. So you want to think about how much fun it will be, or how, like for example, you might want to do something with a friend or with a coworker. Maybe you get the bus to work and you both get off a couple of stops earlier and you walk and you have a nice chat on the way. Maybe it's walking the dog that is more fun because you're taking a different route, or you're listening to your favorite music or audiobook as you do your walk. So you want to tie this in so that you feel motivated and you feel engaged with what is the change that you want to make. And you want to make it easy to remember, remembering to make it small steps. We're not trying to change everything at once because this is really hard, overwhelming, and it's unlikely to stick. Okay.
Yeah, very much so.
And we talked about tying all of this change, this cycle to your why, to why you're doing it, to really making sure that you have that really cemented, that your why is so important because some of these changes do present challenges and it can be hard. And I saw a comment in there that it's difficult when there's other people around you all having a treat treat food and you don't feel like you can engage with it, or you do give in and then you feel a bit guilty. Having a reason why you're going on this journey in the first place, why that it might be challenging, and that you are on a journey for a deeper reason, a reason that really has an emotional connection to you. Um, we talk about this a lot. That it's key to have that sort of internal motivation to keep you on the journey and keeping you sticking to your goals. And you really want to celebrate yourself when you do make a new habit. And of course, you want to repeat it so that those neural pathways are laid down and that you are keeping that loop going. The cycle continues, you celebrate yourself, and you allow yourself to be pleased with yourself. So you want to take action and repeat every day. So remember, it's the forming of a new habit is a process.
Very much so. And this work about habit stacking we find really interesting. Love the little pebbles because I love pebbles anyway. So that's a little happy image for me. But it's sort of like about balancing life and maybe about attaching a new habit onto something you already do. So the research tells us that if we want to do something really new, actually attaching that new thing onto something that we're already doing automatically anyway can really help that new habit become a habit, or that new activity to become a habit, because it's not a habit until we do it automatically. So we need to get to the point where those things happen without us having to put conscious thought in. So these are things we can do. We could be cleaning our teeth in the morning and we could always just say, right, well, when I clean my teeth, I'm going to add on some squats or some arm presses. Or when I have a cup of tea, every time I have a cup of tea, I'm going to have a glass of water. So all of these things become really easy. It's just about finding something that happens quite routinely, regularly in your day, and attaching a new behavior that you want to nail, that you want to make your new healthy habit. It could be that you get your diary out and you make a plan every week on the days that you're going to be sociable, or the days that when, if you're socializing a lot, which days you're going to go off track and allow yourself to treat, and which days you aren't, and the habit is about the plan. Making a plan can really help. So it's about each of us finding the things that we need to do. If sleep, a few people were saying sleep was derailing them or derailing their sort of like healthy behaviors, and actually poor sleep can lead to a whole host of less healthy behaviors because you're just trying to prop your energy up throughout the day with maybe more coffee or some sugary snacks. So if it is that it's sleep, then what do you need to do to improve your sleep? What's going to help you? Is it that you need to get to bed earlier? Do you need to turn the TV off? Do you need to just make some conscious decisions and just stack it up? I think stacking up is really, really helpful.
Absolutely. Yes. And we've said this already. Don't try and change everything at once. We really want to, if you've got a couple of small things that you want to change, that's okay. But if take on the bigger things one at a time and just give yourself time because it takes a bit of time. Um, and we don't want to feel dejected if we're trying to change everything and it's difficult to stick to.
Very much so. So our top tips and our final poll, which is completely anonymous, just to remind you, Raman or Anna, if you're able to share, thank you. That's brilliant. So do take a look at the final poll. Have a think about what you might want to do differently over the next week or so. What are you going to target to boost your weight loss success? So what we'd like to recommend is that you take a little bit of time to think about what it is that's getting in your way. Identify one or two things that you want to change. You could make it one big thing that you're going to take quite some few months to really nail, and a couple of easier things. So you can be working on two or three things at the same time, unless they're huge, in which case do one at a time. Always go for the easiest option first. One of the things we haven't really talked about today is the importance of reward. We did say that vaguely, but actually, one of the things when you get something right, when you achieve something that you really want to nail, then congratulate yourself. That can really help to give you that dopamine boost that your brain is really searching for. Your brain wants dopamine, it's sort of wired for reward. So if we say well done to ourselves, or we give ourselves that pat on the back, or we recognize success, we can really lift our mood and make ourselves feel better. And then the reward of something less healthy will become less important. So that's also a really important step. So I can see a few of you have taken part in this poll, so thank you. So what's happening here for everyone? What do you say, Sam? Most important thing, drinking more water is up there. Being a little bit more active is definitely up there. They're neck and neck, and eating more protein-rich food. So I'd say the drinking water is definitely winning of all of those at the moment. Learning to say no, a few of you have said that's really a good thing. So that might be really something to work on over a period of a few weeks or months. It takes time, doesn't it? It just takes time. We have to be kind to ourselves and also think back to that cycle and recognize that it will go back and forth, ebb and flow. It's not about failure. It's about just strengthening the resolve, strengthening the habit, strengthening that brain pathway, and just getting it right as often as you can in a day or in a week, and can make a real difference. So that's it. We just want to remind you that of the next sessions that we've got coming up. We're going to be talking all about metabolism next week, the psychology and how our thoughts really impact our weight loss on the 19th. And then a webinar all about managing cravings and this whole self-sabotage. It's such an important subject again that we've made a whole webinar about it. So I'm going to come over to your questions. I'm going to stop sharing the slides.
Okay. So, uh, here we go. So if you've got questions, please put them in the Q&A box. It's far easier for us to find them that way. So we've got a question from someone who's on a weight loss injection. On the first dose despite, okay, so I think this gentleman's only in the third week, so I would definitely just give yourself time. You're on the lowest dose, you're in the third week, give yourself time. It's not an overnight success. With medications, I'd be still looking out for side effects at this stage, making sure you've got the foundations in place. So you really want to look at your portion size, making sure you've got protein in every meal, getting more active if you can, making sure your sleep is good and that you have ways to manage your stress. So I would still be putting the foundations in. Um, there's a whole library of these webinars on our YouTube channel. You can listen to the podcast. You can look at the 10-week weight loss course. These are all free resources. So I would just get stuck into those, and because we can use weight loss injections if they suit us, great. But if if you don't put in the lifestyle changes, you don't want to really be dependent on the injections, forever. They're quite expensive. So you probably don't want to, most people don't want to be on medication for a long time. Most people don't want to be paying money for a long, long time. When you can you can make these strides towards that healthier weight for yourself without the medication. But if you are using the medication, you do need to do the things that Ruth and I are talking about every week. It's really important to have the approach be hand in hand. So um, please be patient with yourself. You're still very early on if you're only 3 weeks into the medication.
Very much so. And it's great that you're here. So well done for coming along
Yeah,
because actually following the advice of the webinars or the advice that we give in these webinars or on the podcasts can really make the difference. We know that because people tell us.
yeah,
So it's not just us telling you, it's based on feedback as well. So somebody's asking for a list of the habits that you found particularly popular and effective. That's such a cool question. I think we could be millionaires if we got this right.
mhm,
But for me, protein number one, because it helps with satiety. So actually making sure you're nailing your protein at a minimum of zero point 0.8 grams to around 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day would be where we would like you to head. If you're miles away from that, just gradually bring your protein up and make that your long-term aim. That can really help with satiety and really improve that feeling of fullness and just also help with energy. So it's a really positive fix. Water, I would say, Sam, wouldn't you? Being
yeah.
really
Clear
hydrated.
fluids. Yeah. Not having sugary drinks, including sugar in tea. If you're a tea drinker, I'm a big tea drinker,
Yeah,
and not having sugar in your tea. Um, Sort of understanding that there's other flavors like adding cinnamon. I think adding cinnamon to coffee I really like, and it gives a bit of that sort of spicy sweet, like a warming sweetness that without sugar. So I think that's for me, I appreciate that. So there's something a bit different about my coffee. It's not as bitter. It maybe not for everybody, but I think it's really nice. Um, but yeah, finding sort of ways around that, and also clear fluids being so important, as Ruth said, sort of over the day, and also I think what um, might really help is to recognize that it's sort of the sugar and the processed carbohydrates that are the thing that we want to really be cutting back on, and sort of not looking as at healthy fats as problematic as we have perhaps been taught to over the last decades. Fat has always been seen as kind of
yeah,
the negative component of any um, healthy diet, but actually it's the sugar and carbs that can be more problematic over the day and lead to those sort of blood sugar imbalances over the day, causing more cravings and a bit of a difficult spiral or roller coaster that we're tracing our tails trying to keep our blood sugar level.
yeah. And there's a couple of questions about sweeteners in the chat box. I've noticed one from earlier. Should we be avoiding artificial sweeteners? And now somebody's just asked about are sweeteners better or worse than sugar? That is like a brilliant question. For me, I would actually say I wouldn't choose to have much of either, but if I chose to have some of any, it would be sugar rather than a sweetener, just because I think sweeteners tend to be really artificial. They still have a huge impact on your blood sugar. They still cause you to release insulin. So they're a bit of a misnomer. They don't have the effect that we think that they should have. So for me, I would choose a small amount of natural sugar.
Yeah.
Sam,
Or
where are you with
honey,
that?
or you know, agave or something just less processed. Often
Yeah,
these artificial sweeteners are just white powder, and I don't know, it's just not my thing, and have an odd aftertaste, if you ask me. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I
yeah. It's a
if you
tricky
have
one,
to,
isn't it?
yeah, if you have to have something sweet, then I'd go for something natural. Um,
In small quantities.
mm.
So yeah. Somebody's asked about cinnamon powder. There must be in relation to something else.
Oh,
So
with coffee, yes, I put cinnamon powder in coffee. Or if you're doing a sort of filter, you could put a stick. Why not? If you're, doing a
or the
proper
other
coffee.
option with that is vanilla as well. Some people
Yeah,
really like that vanilla to bring that sweetness in.
yeah.
Gordon, you're asking about the weight of protein per kilogram. So it's zero point 0.8 to a gram per kilogram of body weight per day. I'd say as a guy, you probably want to be heading in towards that 1 gram per kilogram. So say for example, you weighed 100 kilos, you would need 100 grams. So that makes it very simple. And you'd split that across your 3 meals. So it would be something like 33 grams per meal, roughly. And try and have it like a really good amount with each of those meals can really be helpful.
Oh,
Um,
someone's asked about vegetarian protein sources. So, Raman, would you mind sharing? We have a whole handout about vegetarian and vegan sources of protein, so please do
oh,
share
yeah, we
that.
do.
We've got, of course, I mean, if you're vegetarian, you will know you've got tofu, you've got pulses, you've got eggs if you eat eggs, of course. Uh, there
Nuts
are
and nut
lots. Oh,
butters,
yes, of course, nuts and nut butter, a
our
favorite.
favourites. Oh
So
dear. Yeah, and
that's great.
plant-based yogurts. Yeah. So
Yep,
it depends. All of
absolutely.
those things as well. So somebody's saying as we're on the protein trend, somebody's asking if you struggle to get enough protein, are protein supplements okay to include in your diet? We were discussing exactly this yesterday, weren't we, Sam, about
We were.
our sort of slight disquiet about supplemental protein. Um, but I think there is always, for some people, a reason to consider it, and in which case I would go for the ones which have the less ingredients in as possible to make them as pure as possible, and to try and avoid those artificial sweeteners as much as you possibly can. That keeps it very vague. I'm sorry about that, but you can get some nice rice protein powders. You can get pea protein powders if you're a vegan. They're really worth looking at, and there are a few makes that are really worth considering that you can get in some of the high street chemists as well, or the health food shops. So see how you go.
Yeah.
I would say try and work with a bit of variety. Our guts don't really like it or seem to do bad things for us if we're constantly eating the same food. So you want to be mixing that up as much as you can.
Question about full fat Greek yogurt, which we would always recommend over the 0% in general, just because it's just more pure. It has less sort of additional additives, etc., to give you the same kind of texture on the lower fat version. But just watch your portion control as well with these things. You're taking the full fat version, and maybe it's a live yogurt, so it's also good for your gut as well. So, but just look at your portion control, and you'd have that. Maybe you could have that with berries. Berries are sweet, and yet they actually really help your blood sugar balance over the day. So it's a good thing if you have a sweet tooth. And I have definitely had a sweet tooth in my life, so I do know what it's like. And you could have a lovely breakfast with maybe or snack with full fat Greek yogurt, some raspberries, blueberries, and some nuts, or even toasted coconut shavings would be nice.
Yeah, that sounds great. Um, really agree. So somebody's asking if you can have too much protein. you can have too much everything. If we have too much protein, again, it can cause issues with insulin sensitivity and creating too much insulin. So, yes, you want to build it in gradually. You want to keep it as a balance within a balanced plate. So, if you have a look at the core meal plan, that will help you understand how to put a meal together in a way that will bring that balance for you and hopefully help. And we also have the recordings about how to eat and what to eat. So they're really worth looking at as well. And there was a really interesting podcast that we did all about whether to ditch the fat or whether to ditch the sugar. So if that's something you're interested in, have a listen to that if you would like to. Good one for you here, Sam. Sending it straight to you. Somebody is saying they find they do things without thinking. And I think you're not alone. So thank you for asking that question. So how
Yeah.
do you manage that?
So that's exactly what we've been talking about today, isn't it? They're sort of habits, and the fact that our habits are unconscious and that they're just patterns that we've laid down for years, and we just do things on autopilot. And especially when we're half asleep in the morning, we'll, put three sugars in our coffee or whatever it is because we've always done that, or we've always had those cookies at break time or what have you. So the first thing is to recognize, right? So we yes, we do these things on autopilot, but if we bring a bit of mindfulness in, or if we do something like if we completed the food and mood diary, which Raman, you could share again, please, in the chat box. It's not for judgment. It's just to look and see, just noting down everything you eat over the course of a few days or a week, if you like, looking at how much fluids you're drinking, what you're eating, how you're feeling, how that food is making you feel as well, can sometimes be really interesting because you don't realize how, say, having those chocolate biscuits at break time is making you really hungry by 12:30 and you're sort of, you know, less focused, maybe a bit irritable, maybe, getting a little bit hangry at that point because your blood sugar has dipped again because you had a bit of a sugar spike after the break time. So it's a really interesting exercise, and I would encourage everyone to give it a go. And then hopefully some of those unconscious behaviors, those habits that you do on autopilot without even thinking, will emerge in there. And then you can figure out a plan to address them and to either swap them out or minimize them as you can.
Yeah, very much so. Somebody's asking how to make a healthy ice lolly. So I really like that question. It's making me think. So I
Hmm.
think what I'd do is I'd probably start by making a smoothie and then just freeze the smoothie, but like a healthy smoothie. So some natural yogurt of some description, some berries, maybe a little bit of avocado. So you've got that healthy fat in there, maybe a little bit of nut butter, the smooth nut butter rather than the crunchy. So you've got that smooth consistency. You can add a little bit of water to make sure that it's a nice sort of fluidy consistency. Did I say berries? Berries, like you were saying, mango or berries for some natural sweetness. You could put a little bit of, yeah, vanilla essence or cinnamon, and maybe a little bit of lemon, just depending on your taste preferences. And just mix it up and then freeze it. And let us know how you get on. If you get that killer
Mm.
recipe, then
Yeah,
let us
come
know.
along and share. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Or if anybody else is making ice lollies and not using fruit juice, then do share how you do that. So we'd love to know.
Absolutely. There's one about fizzy drinks again. Do the downsides of diet fizzy drinks outweigh the advantage of them being zero? Yes. Just a short answer, yes. Just if you can, I think we are really, I think the food industry is quite cunning, really, about, the way food and drinks are advertised as almost health foods because they have zero calories or, you know, very slim models, etc., advertising these things. And it's not really very fair, if you ask me, because they are not particularly healthy and they're full of all sorts of unknown ingredients, lots of they're super processed. They are almost the archetypal ultra processed food. And I really would not recommend anybody that has them. I realize that if you have your whole life had fizzy drinks, that that might not be much easier said than done. But I would be really looking at reducing, swapping them out for something else because even though they have zero calories, they will have sweeteners in them, which will also impact um, your insulin, your sugar balance over the day. Um, they are not healthful. full
Well,
stop. So I
you
would
could
really look at that if it's an issue for you.
swap to some sparkling water. That it can be so simple. We don't have to give things up completely. We can just also somebody who's here today, Gordon, I think it was, who recommended water drops. Exactly. Gordon, you're
Oh,
back
there you
on
go.
my wavelength. So I was going to say, and also those water drops could be used as a form to make a frozen ice lolly as well. So that would also work. You just make up these drinks with water drops, and you could freeze that. Would you agree, Gordon? I reckon you think that you like this water drop cola capsules. I'm going to get some of those for my daughter. Thank you.
Mhm.
I have not done that, so I must do that. So good shout. Although, is it just buying into? Somebody's asking about healthy chewing gum. Are there any true healthy options available? Interestingly, and this is a complete aside, um, when I was looking at the research around the gut microbiome and the oral microbiome, one of the things that we talk about with people's digestive health is that we need time to rest and digest. And our gut really works well. And actually, our oral microbiome also benefits by us not constantly having something in our mouth. So, if you are really definitively keen to chew, I don't know of any specific. Oh, here you go. Sarah says a cardamom pod. Gosh, that's quite an amazing recommendation. Thank you, Sarah. And the other thing I was thinking about, do you know of any? But I was thinking about mastic gum. I was looking at mastic gum, something that the Greeks chew when they're sitting outside their coffee shops. And there's a lot of beneficial research around mastic gum being helpful for sort of helping with our oral and gut bacteria. So I was just thinking that might be a really positive thing, but it's not really regularly available in the UK, but there are places we can find it. So if you were somebody who wanted to chew, that might be something worth looking into. Yeah, some really great questions and some lovely top tips being shared. So thank you, everyone. What else? What else could you chew apart from a cardamom pod? That's really interesting. Really interesting. Uh, Somebody's asking how much wholemeal bread is recommended a day. Um, if you've had a look at the core meal plan, then I would say you need to be thinking about how much of those starchy carbs you want in a day. It is probably, we would always say when you're putting a plate of food together and you need to think about that balance for each meal, be thinking protein, vegetables, healthy fats as your priorities, then starchy carbs in small amounts. So that would be your bread or your rice or your new potatoes, salad potatoes, all of those things come in. That's very small segment of that healthy plate. So if you're thinking about bread, that would be a very small section of that plate. And if bread is something that you're deeply committed to and married to, then it might be something that you'll struggle with, but it's really worth taking it down as low as you can go.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've
Uh,
just reshared the core meal plan, so thank you.
oh, this is interesting. The protein weight, we need to think 1 gram per kilo. Yeah. Is this cooked or raw weight? It's a little bit more complex than that. Um, where would they go to figure out the protein content? Because it's not technically, say you had a chicken breast that was 100 grams, that won't be 100 grams of protein. That will be also, you've got everything else that makes up that chicken breast. So it's probably more like 70 grams of protein in that
Yeah,
chicken
there
breast.
are some resources online where you can look for that information. So something like chicken breast is 25 grams of protein. An egg is something like 7 or 8 grams of protein. So it isn't, as you're saying, Sam, it's not that solid weight. It's the sort of extracted amount that actually becomes the protein content. Yeah, it's really complex. We haven't written anything specifically around that because there are resources. So I think what we'll do is we'll make sure we've got some good resources to share with you. I'm not sure, Raman, I'm not sure we have any links. If we don't, then we will make sure that we do.
We will. We'll do that. We would invite you to join us again and we will share this, remind us, and we will um, share that with you.
Very good. Well done.
I think, is that everybody's questions? If that's everybody's questions, we will let you go. It's been great. We will see you next week for more. And we'll be back on Monday next week, and it will be Ruth and Alison. Great. All
Great.
right. Thank you,
Brilliant.
everybody, for attending. Thank you for attention. Thank you for your suggestions and your questions. It makes it really interesting for us. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks to Raman and to Anna as well for being here, helping. Bye, everyone.